Hello and welcome back to the all-new, all-different #1 Comics Podcast, Volume 1. You know, I wanted to leave out the volume part, Bob. I was this close. Volume 1, Issue 91. I'm Dan. That's Bob. Say hello, Bob.
Hello, Bob.
We are a weekly comic book podcast where each and every episode we take a look at a brand new first issue comic book, break down the story and art, give it somewhat of a review, and let you know if we think that you should move on to issue number 2 or not. We also talk a little bit of comic book news, if and when that exists, as well as going over the new books for this and next week. Bob, this week we'll be covering the all-new #1
from Dynamite Comics.
There you go, Dynamite, back in the house.
Terminator.
That's right, Terminator. You know, it's just what you guys think. The old, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Edward Furlong. I'm trying to think of the lady's name.
Oh man,
I can't think of. Okay, Sarah Connor's name, Linda Hamilton. There we go. Yeah, it spins directly off from that first movie is what I'm told. So it doesn't have any of the lore that goes in from like the second movie and on, but
we don't need to talk about that.
Right? I mean, that second movie though, Bob, that's my favorite Terminator movie. But
but
it just takes place after the first one.
Yeah, but after the second movie,
yeah. Well, that's a whole thing. Either way, we're talking comics. We're not talking movies, although there might be a little bit of spillover there. Either way, Bob, that lands us on our first quick break. We're going to take a second. We'll be right back to talk some comic book news. And welcome back to the all-new, all-different #1 Comics Podcast, issue number 91. It's so hard not to say episode, Bob. It's just so ingrained there. Like it's impossible to say.
Yeah, issue. I know, but we are a comic podcast.
It's true. It's just I really got to stop and think every time. I'm like episode, issue.
Yeah, I can actually see you stopping and literally thinking.
You see the wheels spinning like nice and slow in my head. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad that they're that visual, but what else? Bob, it's time to talk some comic book news. Of course, here on the all-new, all-different #1 Comics Podcast, we got to talk comic book and related news. Sometimes there's movie news. It's usually just movie news, but every now and again there's some comic book news. I don't know. I'm going to start off with some actual comic book news, though, Bob. And I don't know if this is going to surprise you or not. I don't know how much you've been reading this week about comic book news or whatever, but man, Absolute Batman is like the thing right now. You know how we always, I'm not going to say always, but pretty often in comics, there's like a thing, there's a book to chase or a new series coming out or whatever. And right now, Absolute Batman is like just killing it.
Yeah, this is what I've been seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the issue #1 sold out at the retailer level. So before it even hit shops, it was sold out. Went to a second printing, which sold out before the first printing had hit shelves. So we're getting a third printing coming, and I think it's going to be sometime towards the end of November. But 3 printings of this Batman book, Absolute Batman, and Absolute Batman is just. Absolute is like the perfect word for it because it's like when you think like extreme and all those kind of words and stuff, just like Absolute Batman is like an absolute unit. Like his logo on his chest and everything is is the head of an axe, and he's got his little. I don't read enough Batman to know all the terminology of Batman, as you know, but like his earpieces come off and they're weapons and everything. It's so extreme and crazy. Yeah, it's such a crazy concept for a Batman. Alfred in the book is crazy. It's just weird. Batman's dad is still alive. Like it's different. Very, very different. Yeah. So I'm assuming you haven't read it yet.
No, I have not.
Okay, so then that's all the spoilers I'll go with. I won't say anything else, but it is it's a fun comic. It's really cool. It's really extreme. It's really crazy. It's a different take on Batman, which is you hear that a lot. Like this is going to be a different take on Batman or whatever. And it's it's usually just kind of the same, more the same thing. But this is very, very different. I will say they did some very different stuff with this one, and I can appreciate that. So
Is it a more violent Batman?
I mean, so far I don't really know if he's more violent because I mean, there's just been so many incarnations of Batman and so many different things that we've seen that I don't. I mean, he's violent, sure.
Okay, is he Azrael Batman violent?
I mean, we haven't gotten far enough to know that yet. Is what I'll stick with. We're not
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Moving on from Batman news and going to Batman adjacent news because you know, Joker 2, Bob. I mean, I still haven't seen this movie. We discussed it, outside of the podcast. It's not a movie that either one of us probably ever will see.
No.
Yeah, it's just not my kind of thing. It's not your kind of thing, whatever. But Joker 2 has had the worst second weekend of any comic book movie. So it's breaking some records the bad way.
Yes, and it's had the worst percentage drop between the first and second movie at 82%.
Of a drop.
I mean, 82%.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane. But I mean, think about it. I think a lot of people were confused whenever they heard it was a musical. Naturally, I was confused. I'm sure you were as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the introduction of Lady Gaga into it as like a Harley Quinn type of character, like that didn't bother me. I mean, I thought that was fine. Actually, pretty good casting. I like Lady Gaga; she's a good actor, and obviously Joaquin Phoenix, a very good actor. I think it was just, it's such a weird movie, and then to make it part musical and everything. And what I've heard about, what they're doing with the music and everything, like you bring Lady Gaga into it, you're thinking like, okay, well at least she's got pipes, like she can really sing and everything. But apparently the singing parts are just really, really bad, like kind of on purpose or whatever. It's just bad. There's a lot of like grunting and a lot of like off keyness and stuff like that, which I guess is supposed to like fit the tone of the movie or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry. It sounds like a terrible concept to me. Like nothing about this idea works for me, and I'm not sure, what they were going for here. So it seems like it's not working for everybody else either. But I mean, I want to ask you this because we're in this weird time period where comic book movies are like back on the downslope, and we have some big stuff coming, of course, stuff that people are looking forward to. But this last year, with stuff like Morbius and Madam Web and before that, the second Venom movie and now Joker 2 and stuff, it's like we're seeing like quite a few misses, and we know we have Craven coming up, which I mean, I have a lot of hope for. I hope it's awesome. I don't know if it will be, but like, what's up with this lately? Because are we seeing like where people want, comic book movies to be like this memeable, thing that they kind of laugh at now? Like, is that almost what people are looking for when they're looking at a comic book movie, or do the masses still want like a good comic book movie? Because we did have Deadpool Wolverine that, broke records the other way, and everybody loved, but it was a very different kind of superhero movie. So like, what's the evolution of this? Like, where are we going? Like, what's going on?
My biggest opinion of this whole thing, why there's been more misses than there have been hits lately, is, I mean, for the most part, some of the quality of the films are kind of meh. Of course, you say you like Madam Web, but
I
of
do
course,
like Madam Web.
most other, of the general public, didn't care for Madam Web, and I think I can't say for certainty, but I think one of the biggest things is, especially with comic book movies or something of a IP that's been around for a while and has a big history. If it doesn't, especially a comic book movie, if it doesn't, tie into anything else, or it doesn't have any other kind of nods, or it just does its own thing, and it's just standalone, like the Joker is. Because I mean, that's basically an Elseworld story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest downfall with it. I mean, if it was a Joker movie that took place in the DC proper,
yep,
I think I'm not saying it would, but I think it would have done better.
Well, yes, and I also think that with James Gunn, and then I can't remember the other guy's name, but and then like Warner Brothers and everybody kind of overseeing it as a DCEU like proper movie, they probably wouldn't allow for such big swings. Stuff like, all right, we're gonna make it a musical or whatever. Like, I mean, I feel like they would like want to reel it in a little more, and I don't.
Yeah.
Here's the question, Bob. Like, here's the question I have for you before I get into it. There is something I could spoil, like a really big part of this movie, and I'm not going to see it. I don't think you have any plans on ever seeing it, so I think we're okay with the spoiler parts. Are you okay with me talking spoilers on the podcast right now? Like, are you okay with spoilers? You want me to leave that out?
I definitely, give the disclaimer that we're about to get into spoiler territory.
Bob, it's too early for disclaimer time. Just, I haven't thought of a song. I'm just playing. Yeah, no, you're right. So definitely, huge disclaimer here. If you're planning on seeing Joker 2 at any point, then skip ahead, a couple of minutes, because this is like a big spoiler of the movie. Very big.
3, 2, 1.
Blast off. Yeah, so at the end of this movie, Bob, and I don't know if you already know this, but if you do or if you don't, we'll just discuss it. But
are we talking about the prison scene?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So you know about it. So yep. For the listeners out there who are still listening, who don't mind being spoiled here, again, spoiler in 3, 2, 1. So towards the end of the movie, I believe the scene is that Arthur is back in Arkham, or maybe prison or something. I'm not sure. But another inmate stabs him to death, or on the verge of death or whatever, and just begins laughing maniacally, and then carves the infamous smile lines into the side of his face, alluding that it is the most likely the Heath Ledger Joker from the Nolan trilogy. So why? That's my biggest thing here. This is like an Elseworlds type of thing. I get like the subtle nod and like, haha, like, that could be this or whatever. But like, once you do something like that, it's more than a subtle nod. It's a direct tie-in, if that's what they're doing, which doesn't line up, because I believe this movie takes place like in the 70s or 80s. And then, Heath Ledger, probably around the same age as you and me, so it wouldn't even have been born. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I don't know. My whole thing with that scene is, you've basically already come out and said, without coming out and saying it, that this does not take place, in the mainstream DC continuity, which is fine. But it's kind of like, no, if you're going to do something different, own it. Don't, own it for most of the film, and then for a 5-minute scene or whatever, try to tie it into DC continuity proper. Just own the fact that you're doing, for good or bad, own the fact that you're doing your own idea.
And yes, and I 110% agree with that, because that's my problem with it too. I think I get what he was going for, because had this been a popular movie that people really liked, I feel like he would be like, oh, people are, this is like fan servicey. People are going to like this. They're going to think it's cool to nod to the Nolan trilogy and all that. I get the thought process, but I don't get the thought process of the entire movie or 2 movies or whatever. So I don't know. It seems like so stupid, like it's the best way I can put it. I wish I could articulate it better than saying stupid, but like, it just seems stupid.
I don't know. To me, it was one of those things where you basically undid everything you did for a movie in 3/4
Mm-hmm.
just in that one scene.
Yeah, because this take on Joker is not Joker and Batman and that world. Like it's something different. Like it's this delusional, like a psychopath, like whatever. It's not. It's just not the same thing. Like it's something very different. So I don't know. It just doesn't have the same intent as that Nolan trilogy, with that character, and then it's like you're bringing him into that world. So I don't know. It's very, very odd. Anyways, spoiler over. I'll try to put time stamps in the show notes for spoiler and spoiler over. Speaking of movies, though, Bob, Venom 3, The Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
The director has now actually come out and said that Noel will be a big key player and not a one and done here. So that's awesome.
Yeah, this is what I'm hearing. I've been hearing things that, who was it? I can't remember who said it, but I think I read it on Key Collectors that the person who said that said the King in Black cannot be told in one movie.
Yeah, so it was Kelly Marcel, the director.
Yes.
And they said that Noel's presence in the film is just an introduction, and the King in Black is way too powerful for just one movie. So, again, super cool for fans of Noel and all of that. Super, super great news for people like me who are holding on to quite a few Noel first appearances. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and there's been a rumor that that's actually going to be the plot line of the next installment in Spider-Man. He's going to be Spider-Man is going to be teaming up with Eddie Brock to take on Noel.
Which, hell yeah, I really hope so. That sounds so cool.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, so stoked about that. I feel like, get all of our like wacky, shit that we grew up with. I mean, I know Noel's a newer character, obviously, but like, like the extreme like Carnage and all that stuff, like Venom. Let's get all this like and the MCU proper and make it like a thing. Put some real backing behind it. I mean, the Venom stuff has been good enough, but it's definitely if it's backed by the MCU. Backed by that machine and everything, people can get excited about it. I feel like that will really do something different than what Sony is able to do. So yeah, I'm hoping for that, Spider-Man deal there, and hopefully that goes through. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm hoping they can play nice because
right.
I just think if it's a King in Black. If that rumor is true and they are doing King in Black, I just think it would be very limited being just Sony.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little while ago about that special deal that Sony has now with Marvel, to where they can use characters. There just has to be like some kind of time in between. So I mean that works out great. That's fine. That will definitely work. So. Yeah, I really hope so. Bob, I do have like a lot of bullet points with news here, so I want to get through them. Like, those were like kind of my big ones, so I'll take it down a little bit from here. But Rob Liefeld, one of your favorite artists and writers, is going to be writing and illustrating a new Youngblood series. So it's been 7 years since he worked on any Youngblood stuff, and he's back to Youngblood. So I don't. Look, I don't know who this is for. I don't know that anybody loves Youngblood that much. I mean, that 92 Image series, the first issue is in every, I would say, quarter, 50 cent, dollar bin, but again, those don't really exist anymore. So, you can pick up a copy for under $5. And then, issue 2 has got the first appearance of Prophet and all of that, and Shadowhawk and everything. So, I mean, there was some cool characters, that came out, Showdown Supreme, Bloodstrike, all of that. But did you have any favorites? Did you read Youngblood? Were you a Youngblood fan?
No.
Okay.
I know of it, but I know nothing of it.
Well, it's just, extreme, and it's just, 90s Another team thing by Rob Liefeld. Bob, I think you would like Bad Rock. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there now. I think Bad Rock would be your favorite character if I had to pick one. But
okay. Does he have lots of pouches?
Everybody that Rob Liefeld draws has pouches. Pouches and no feet. So, Bob, a sequel to the decade-old hit video game Alien Isolation is in development. I've never played that I can recall, so I don't have any huge affinity for it, but good for them.
I've never played it, but I had a friend who played it, and I watched him play it, and it even got me on edge at times.
That's funny because I've never been much of a gamer. Like at any point in my life, I've played like very few games. Obviously, I've been to the arcades and played like Marvel versus Capcom and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And I've had video game systems throughout my life. I did get on this kick where I played Buffy for a little while on Xbox, and I got really big into Resident Evil, Code Veronica X on PlayStation. But other than that, never really big into it. But I was the same way, man. When I was a kid, like my sister, had her like Nintendo or Super Nintendo or whatever. Sorry, wow, I'm completely wrong. Sega Genesis, and and would play like Sonic and stuff like that. And I would just love to sit there in a room and like we'd listen to old punk music and like she'd be playing Sonic, and I'd be like, yeah, this is cool. But I never really wanted to pick up the controller and play much. But yeah, super cool. Bob, Shinobi. I don't know if you know what that is. I have absolutely no clue what that is, but a movie based on the character is in the works from Universal with director Sam Hargrave from Extraction at the head of that. Shinobi, I don't know. It's a I don't know, something to do with ninjas, it looks like. So I don't know if you guys know more about that, then cool. I don't. Looks like the first appearance was in Dark Horse Comics back in 2002, way back in the day, Bob, in 2002, when you were just a little Bob. So we've got some more Lanterns news for the Lanterns TV series. Actor Aaron Pierre has been cast as Jon Stewart. I'm not sure who that is. I don't know if you know the actor there, but
I remember looking him up later or actually when they first dropped the news about it, and I didn't go over his acting credits. I mean, he didn't look familiar to me, but then again, I have to go over his acting credits.
Well, I mean, he was playing Jon Stewart. I assume he's somebody big, so
I figured it was going to be a buddy comedy.
Yeah,
with an older actor and a younger actor. I figured that once they cast Hal Jordan, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name right now, but
yeah, the dude from Friday Night Lights, right?
Yeah, once they cast him, I was like, okay, they're definitely going with somebody younger. It's gonna be a Lethal Weapon.
Well, I'm going to tell you this because I'm just looking him up now on IMDb and on Google and everything. And the dude looks like a freaking male model. Like, I mean, he's ripped. Like he's a good looking chiseled guy. Got the face and everything. He starred in Old, so I'm familiar with him. I know I watched Old. I don't think you have, right? The M. Night Shyamalan movie about the characters on the beach there. Like, yeah. So I'm familiar with him now based on that. But yeah, he's been in stuff. He was in the Underground Railroad TV series and yeah, he's definitely been in some things. Obviously, as I said, Old. Apparently, I don't know. I don't know anything else really besides those two. But yeah, good for him, man. That's really cool. That's a good get to be Jon Stewart in a Lanterns TV show. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Congrats to that guy. And speaking of congrats to guys, Bob, we talked about this off air. Henry Cavill as the lead in the Voltron movie.
Yep.
Super cool.
That's definitely a get.
Yeah, really. And, we talked about this off air too. Is Henry Cavill a franchise killer? I hope not. But I don't know. I don't know enough about Voltron we talked about that when the Voltron thing was announced. I don't know enough about it to know like characters and everything. I just get that they're like, I don't know, mechs or something. But cool. Bob Magpie was introduced in the Penguin TV series as a resident of Arkham Asylum. You've watched some of Penguin, or are you up to date on everything Penguin that's come out?
I have. I've watched the first 3 episodes. I think the 4th one comes out later this week.
Okay, and you're still enjoying it. You like it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely a whole lot better than I thought. Of course, like I've told you, coming out of the Batman movie, it is kind of, slower paced, but it is faster paced than the movie was.
That's good. I'm going to have to give that first episode a shot. I just,
right.
I don't know. Sometimes that stuff that like I feel is like pretentious, like film snob stuff, like it's hard for me to get into, but I will try to give it a shot.
There is a plot point in the early part of the first episode that it's kind of like, really, they're doing this but in a different way. And once you see, and if you watch episode 1, once you see what it is, you'll understand what I mean.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm not going to promise that I'll watch it tonight, but sometime this week, I hope I can get in and give it a shot.
I'm going to say hopefully it doesn't take you 7 tries.
Yeah, I won't make it past 2, so we'll see. Here's some big news, Bob, and I know you're really excited about this one. Hallmark and Crayola Studios are teaming up to develop a Rainbow Bright TV show and movie.
I saw that.
With Sonic the Hedgehog and Fast and Furious producers attached. Bob, go ahead and grab a copy of DC's 1985 Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer #1. It's the first appearance of Rainbow Bright in comics, an adaptation of the 1985 movie. Right now sitting at like under $20 on eBay. You can find a copy. So, Bob, now's your chance.
I know they're only the producers, but that is a major change.
Yeah.
Going to Rainbow Bright from Fast and Furious.
Really cool.
Those IPs are on 2 different ends of the spectrum, if there ever were such thing.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. But yeah, interesting. I don't know. I probably have watched some Rainbow Bright when I was a kid. Like I said, I had a sister, so I'm sure it's happened, but I don't know exactly what Rainbow Bright was about or what was going on there. But yeah,
I know for a fact I never watched Rainbow Bright.
You didn't have any sisters, Bob? Well, yeah, fair enough.
My sister is 6 years older than I am.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So she was watching the hard stuff when you were at Rainbow Bright age. She was already hitting Saved by the Bell and 90210 and stuff like that. Melrose Place.
Yep.
Fun. My last little bit of news again from Dynamite here. Super topical for the book we're doing today, but Dynamite launched is launching Silverhawks, Bob. Silverhawks #1 by Ed Brisson and George somebody else in January. And it's going to have a Thundercats crossover as well. So
really?
Come on, Bob. I know that's in your wheelhouse. We'll definitely be checking out Silverhawks #1 when that drops. And at the very least, we know it's going to be written well. It's Ed Brisson, and you have Dynamite at the helm. So,
right.
Yeah.
My new favorite
get
publisher.
Much better than that, right? Can they do any wrong? I don't know. They probably can, but not anything that we've read.
They haven't so far.
Yeah, they haven't disappointed us at all. That's for sure. Unless you have anything, Bob, that's all the news I've got.
No, I don't.
All right, then we'll take a quick break and we'll go over some books that dropped this week. Hey, and welcome back to the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast. issue number 91. Bob, it's time to talk about some new books that dropped in shops this week. There was some stuff in shops this week, I will say.
Not
of course,
absolute
from
Batman.
Detective. Yeah. Well, speaking of from Detective Comics, we got Absolute Batman #1, the premiere issue of an ongoing series that will take place in an absolute universe, a dimension built on dark side energy. First, a team appearance of the Party Animals, Bob. I know that's definitely in your wheelhouse
Party
there.
Animals.
Absolutely. This one's got several introductions of characters in the existing Batman mythos with new origins and designs. Again, everybody's book of the week. This is a big one. It's sold out everywhere. I'm pretty sure you could hawk some of those on eBay and make some cash, but I'm hanging on to mine as well as my DC All-In #1. So very cool. Bob, also from Detective Comics, we got Batman and Robin 14, first cameo appearance of Memento. How about over to Marvel Comics, Bob? We got Blade Red Band #1. You know I picked this up. Dude, this cover is badass, like the regular cover. You got Blade just slicing through a dude's head on the cover, just blood going everywhere. It's intense. This one's got the first team appearance of the Spell Guard. So really, really cool there.
I still can't believe it took them this long to give a red band to Blade.
I know. That should have been the first red band they did.
It really should have.
Yeah, we should have been. I'm sorry. We should have had these since the early 90s, and they should have included hollow foil trading card in each one and everything. Mm-hmm. Like, come on. What are you guys doing? But whatever. Right. Marvel doesn't want to make money, I guess. But Bob, Conquest 2099 from friend of the show, Steve Orlando. You know, he does all the 2099 stuff. He is the 2099 guy, and he's doing Conquest now. This one's got the first appearance of Spider-Side 2099, as well as the introduction of Domus Dracuum, a vampire homeworld. Yeah, this one is super cool. And you know what I like about this, Bob? I'm going to go ahead and call this now. This is one of those things. It's not going to heat up super organically, week by week or anything, because it's too obscure. But what's going to happen is in 15 or 20 years, they're going to be milling through stuff, and they're going to be let's really flesh out this vampire homeworld, and let's really do something crazy with it. And then everyone's going to be shit, I need a copy of Conquest 2099 #1. And, it's going to be a $500 book. So again, not going to happen in the next couple of weeks or anything, but give it some time. This is prime for some cool stuff. Steve Orlando is really, really building that 2099 universe. Really, really cool.
How many copies are you getting?
Oh, wow. You mean? Yeah, quite a few. We got Exceptional X-Men issue #2, the first appearance of Melee and Exo. Really cool. Bob, how about, did you pick up your copy of Fantastic Four 26 with that insanely rad Halloween cover, where the skull is just spewing blood everywhere, and Johnny and Reed are just drowning in it?
When I picked up my comics, I don't remember seeing that actually.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think I could have possibly grabbed the last issue that our shop had, because there were other covers there. But yeah, that one was pretty much gone. I think, if I didn't grab the last one, there was maybe 1 or 2 left. So
right.
Yeah. Really, really rad cover. Cool standalone issue. I haven't read it yet. I kind of skimmed through it, and I was I saw a bunch of dialogue, so I was I'll come back to this one. But maybe I'll wait a little closer to Halloween. It's only October 14th. We still got a little bit of time before Halloween drops, so maybe before then I'll check it out. From back over to Detective Comics, Green Lantern Civil Course Special #1. Mogo becomes a rogue Red Lantern planet. I have no idea. Those are a bunch of words that I just read that I'm sure form some kind of sentence. I don't know enough about Green Lantern to know what the hell that meant. So, yeah, cool.
I haven't read much Green Lantern, but I have watched some DC animated stuff, so I am familiar with the character of Mogo.
Okay, yeah, never heard of him. Bob, here's a book that we both missed, and we talked about this because this was actually supposed to be the book we're covering this week, and we could not because it was sold out. But Murder Kingdom #1 from Mad Cave Comics. Once upon a time, in a strange land called Florida, Bob, a masked psycho starts murdering cast members of the Storybook Kingdom theme park in ways identical to the gory original Grimm's fairy tales. It's such a cool book, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm really excited that we are able to cover Terminator because that's the one that I wanted to cover. But I mean, this one it's Florida for one thing. We should be covering every Florida book that comes out. And two, this sounds really, really cool. So again, I wasn't even able to get a copy. Neither were you. I'll have to see if I could find it, secondary or like read it digitally or something like that. But it just sounds like such a cool book. So I'm sad I didn't get a copy of that one.
So I wonder what theme park they're spoofing.
Hey, no lawsuits here. I'm not going to say anything. We'll just let everyone imagine that on their own.
I hope we see a mascot.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I was going to say you got to cover for me for a second while you yawn, but I couldn't even get that out in time, so sorry for the yawn. Bob from Dark Horse Comics, Seance in the Asylum, #1. Not a great place to have a seance in an asylum, but, whatever. A phony spiritual medium is offered a job at a mental health facility where she performs seances that appear to possess the patients. Bob, that sounds horrifying. That doesn't sound like a great thing to do,
No.
A seance in a mental health facility, probably not good to bring out those demons there. So,
because nothing ever goes wrong with a seance at an insane asylum.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But hey, I mean, I guess do what you got to do. But I did pick a copy of this up. I haven't read it yet, but that's such a cool concept. So good on them. For Marvel Comics, Bob, we have our first Sentinels book, at least that I know of. This one has Sentinels #1. It is the first team appearance of the Sentinels, Sawtooth, Lockstep, Drumfire, and Void. I don't know. Drumfire, maybe a Sentinel I'll like. I play drums, Bob. I could, set my drums on fire and play them a little bit. I don't know. Super cool. We got the Spider-Man Black Suit and Blood, issue #3, an anthology of stories that introduce dark alternate reality versions of Spider-Man. So, I mean, look, I hate to say this every time because every Spider book has a new Spider character, but I mean, think of how many of them have paid off, like quite a few of them have paid off, Some of it sounds goofy.
I'm kind of thinking from this book that it kind of sounds like it's a tie-in between Spider-Man and the Dark Multiverse.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean,
kind of like a Batman Who Laughs, Peter Parker, kind of like Red Death, Peter Parker.
Yeah. And I mean, we laugh at them, because they sound goofy and stuff, but then you end up with, like $100 first appearance on your hands. So I don't know. I can't knock it. That's all I can say. Star Wars Ewoks #1. I just found out last week that, as big of a fan of Star Wars that you are, you don't love the Ewoks. So this is
no, I don't love the Ewoks.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. This is a 4-issue limited series that reveals what happened after the Battle of Endor, and it's got the first appearance of Meedro, an Ewok. So, yeah, Bob. I mean, I guess you're not going to get a Meedro tattoo anytime soon, but
if I want to know what happens after the Battle of Endor, I'll continue reading Star Wars Insurgency.
Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, you're not wrong. Let's talk a little bit about the book that, again, we're covering this today, but Terminator #1. Terminators are dispatched across the globe and throughout time to target current resistance fighters, their ancestors, and anyone unlucky enough to be in the strike zone. So that's what's happening there. We got Transformers. Sorry.
Before we go any further, let me point out, I don't know if you got this cover for yourself, but let me point out
Oh yeah,
This Alex Ross Terminator.
Yeah, I was about to say, dude, it's Alex Ross. Twin covers there. I got the same thing.
This is so nice.
Yeah, this is a badass cover. I mean, I will say pretty much every cover was really cool. And we got him in the back of the book there. Like all the covers were cool, but yeah, you can't. I mean, it's a freaking Alex Ross cover with flames all over the place and skulls and a giant Terminator. Yeah, why would you not pick that up? It's so cool.
I know.
Such a cool cover. Bob, we got Transformers 13 from Image, the first appearance of Gwynvo. Never heard of Gwynvo.
No, can't say I have either.
Yeah, so maybe a new character there. But we did get Ultimates number 5 from Marvel Comics. This one has the first appearance of Ultimate Hawkeye, a Native American Hawkeye. So, yeah, super, super cool stuff. Good stuff out this week. Lots to talk about. But we will take another break, and we're going to return and talk about Terminator number 1 in just a moment. Hey, and welcome back to the all-new, all-different number 1 comics episode issue number 91. Bob. Bob, you were supposed to catch me there. You're my savior. This is
just say episodic issue, and you can't go wrong either way.
That does sound kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. Bob, we're covering Terminator number 1 from our surprise favorite publisher, Dynamite Comics, which I can't overstate that enough. Like, you guys don't realize the stigma that comes along with Dynamite Comics from the era that Bob and I are from. It's just like, that's not really books you read. You grab it for the cover of Vampirella's boobs or something, and that's about it. But God, no, man, there's just some talent in these books.
And the crazy thing is, I think I've said this before, but before we started doing this podcast, I could probably count maybe on one hand how many Dynamite books I have ever read or I had ever read. And I mean, it's kind of like, how many Dynamite comics have we covered on this podcast alone?
Yeah, and the crazy thing is just, I mean, remember that first one, Bob? We were just like, what the hell are we about to read? Because I'm pretty sure, wasn't the first one the Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft?
Yeah.
And it was just like, God, this is going to be the dumbest crap. Like, this is going to be so stupid. And then we opened the book and we're like, did I just love this book? Like, how did that happen? How is that even a possibility that happened? And it was just so ridiculously good. And then every single time after that, wow, another one. Wow, another one. Wow, another one. Like, it's insane what Dynamite is doing out there. And I mean, there should be a lot more people talking about what Dynamite is putting out is all I can say. Really, really good stuff. So Terminator 1, Bob, before we start talking about the book, and I'm going to get there like very, very soon, but I just want to talk about my history with Terminator. I want to ask you about yours too, because for me, I'm trying to remember the year that T2 came out. That's information I should definitely have in front of me, but I'm going to see if it's just like an easily Googleable thing. Yeah, okay. So July 3rd, 91. So 91. So what does that make me, Bob? 7? Something like that? 7, 8? 7, I think. So Terminator 2 drops. And, I don't know about you. I don't know if you had watched Terminator 1 before you saw Terminator 2, but I knew nothing about Terminator 1. It wasn't a thing. But I remember seeing ads for Terminator 2, and I remember thinking, this is the coolest thing that could possibly happen in my entire life. Like, this looks like the most just insane, rad thing I've ever seen. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger. You've got Edward Furlong, who at that time was like very young as well, kind of playing this teenager. But, he's like, there's motorcycles, there's just all kind of stuff just going on here. I'm trying to think of the Guns N' Roses song from the soundtrack, the You Could Be Mine. Man, just everything about this movie, the trailer, renting it at Blockbuster, all that stuff, just so cool. So cool. Didn't get any cooler than that. So I really, really love Terminator 2 a lot. I love it. going back and watching Terminator 1. I really love that movie. It stands on its own. It's really good. It honestly didn't even need the sequel, but I'm so glad we got it. And then just like you know, kind of anything after C2 was like downhill from there. The Sarah Connor Chronicles are good, but they're not going to hold a candle at all to those first two movies, in my opinion. And you know, some of the Now comics have been good as well. Those Now comics that came out, you know, they weren't bad, but yeah, it's just hard to recapture, you know, what happened in Terminator or Terminator 2. And I just really, really loved Terminator. Did you have a history with Terminator at all? Did you watch it, you know, back in the day or any of that?
I'm trying to remember the first time I actually watched it. I know for a fact I never watched it in theaters.
Okay.
I know for a fact I had to have watched it on HBO, but I think I was probably in high school the first time I watched those movies.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, man, I was a kid.
Well, first of all, how did your parents ever let you?
Oh, who knows? You know, I mean, maybe I wasn't allowed and I just did it anyways. I really couldn't tell you.
That is true. I mean, you know, back then, if our parents told us not to do something or not to watch something, we found a way to do it or watch it.
Yeah, you're like, I don't care.
But no, I mean, even to this day, you know, I like the first two movies. I'm not going to say that, you know, oh my God, they're two of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, I know T2 is considered, you know, a classic. But I don't know. I mean, again, I like the movies, but they're not going to crack my top list of all-time favorite movies.
Really? Okay. I mean, and that's fine. You know, there's obviously nothing wrong with that. And, you know, we like what we like for whatever reasons that we like it and all of that. But yeah, man, I just loved that movie. It just it made such a huge impression on me. It was just so important to me growing up and everything. And I just thought it was so cool. Such a good movie. So I'm trying to figure. Okay, Bob. So I was almost 8 years old when that movie came out. I was like 7 years, 9 months, and 5 days old when. When
did you say it came out in 91?
July 3rd.
So yeah, I was 9 and a few months.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, man. Just, you know, at that point in my life, like nothing was better than that. It was just the coolest thing I had ever seen. So I thought it was so fun. But yeah. Anyways, that's kind of our history with it. That's where we, you know, stand with Terminator. So I will say I'm a person with, you know, I have a lot of fandom for certain things and a lot of affinity and stuff like that for stuff that I like, but my expectations for this kind of thing are usually pretty low. I won't lie. You know, going into things like Thundercats and this and all of that, like I'm excited for it, but I'm not expecting to recapture my youth, you know, in a comic book. It basically is what I'm trying to say. So expectations pretty low, you know, but that's kind of where we were. And before we talk about the book, I do want to talk about your expectations because you've seen the movie. I assume you've seen both movies, right? At least the first two, and then some stuff beyond that. But
I was going to say, unfortunately, some of the Drek after that.
Yeah. So expectations for you, like, are they high expectations? Again, you said it's not like your favorite thing in the world. You like Terminator, but it's not like, you know, your favorite thing. What were your expectations for this before you read it?
Well, I mean, before I give my, you know, final expectations on this book, particularly going back to what you said about, you know, it not about comic books based on like movies and such, not exactly capturing the movie. To me, comic books based off of, you know, properties, you know, kind of like Thundercats, stuff like that. Thundercats, Transformers. To me, it's kind of like movies based off video games.
Yeah.
They can be hits, you know, like the new Super Mario Brothers movie. they can be misses, like the John Leguizamo Bob Hoskins Super Mario Brothers movie.
Bob, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I love that movie. So, yeah.
But after seeing the movies, my expectations for this is, I will say, just like there was a Star Wars comic that just came out. Star Wars Ahsoka. It was based off of the Ahsoka series on Disney Plus, and my expectations are that I just don't want to see a beat for beat.
Yeah.
A beat for beat, panel for panel, shot for shot in the book of the movie, which unfortunately is, I didn't read past the first issue, but the first issue of that Star Wars Ahsoka I was just referring to, it is a beat for beat of the TV series, and it's kind of like, okay, this is disappointing because there's nothing new, nothing. You're not introducing new ideas. You're not fleshing anything out. So why exactly am I going to buy this book? So
yeah, and I know what you're talking about because I can't think of exactly what they were, but like I remember being a kid and there being like some kind of adaptation of a movie or a TV show or something, like in book form or whatever, and it would just be like the same exact story but condensed down, or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't like those either. I'm like, give me something different, a different perspective or something. Like, why am I just getting the same thing that I just watched in this form and that's it? So yeah, I'm with you. I'm always expecting or wanting something a little bit different when it comes to that.
Yep.
Well, Bob, let's go into the synopsis from Dynamite. This is a long one, so bear with me here. I'll try not to stumble, but we know how that goes. The plans to kill Sarah Connor and her son John have failed, but the genocidal Skynet isn't out of options yet. There are still a few more avenues into the past that will allow it to destroy human resistance that is poised to smash its processors into silicon shrapnel. It just needs to expand its theater of operations. Opening a new front in the war, Terminators are dispatched across the globe throughout time to target current resistance fighters, their ancestors, and anyone else unlucky enough to be in the strike zones. And while none of these secondary assignments are as straightforward as the missions of the first T-800 and T-1000, time is literally on the machine side. When all of history becomes a war zone, nowhere and no when is safe. Acclaimed creator Declan Shalvey returns to the present for another blockbuster Dynamite series, joining rising star artist Luke Sparrow for the all-new tales of Skynet and its nigh unstoppable mechanical assassins. That's a very different word. All supported by algorithmically perfect covers from Declan Shalvey, Edwin Galman, Sway, and I don't even know why I read that part because God, those are names, and we know I can't do that. Let me talk about the creators really quick before the creators whose names I can pronounce. Really quick before I go into my synopsis. Of course, Declan Shalvey. We know Declan. Declan's done quite a bit. Declan's on Thundercats, so we've talked about him before. He's also done Time Before Time, Moon Knight, 28 Days Later, The Punisher, Venom, Thunderbolt, Injection, Deadman Logan, The Ribbon Queen, Deadpool, RoboCop: The Last Stand, Bloodshot, Groot, Return of Wolverine, Old Dog, Civil War II, Choosing Sides, Magneto, Alien, Star Trek Defiant, Project Superpowers, Black Cross, Occupy Avengers. I don't know. I get to the point where the list just goes on and on and on. So no real point there in talking about that. But Declan Shalvey has done a lot, especially since Declan is one of those I can write and I can illustrate type of people. So I hate people like that. They're a bunch of assholes. I can't do either one, and these guys are out here doing both. So jerks.
Catch up.
I know, right? Luke Sparrow, Bob, is a illustrator here. He's worked on Star Trek from IDW, Star Trek Resurgence, Star Trek The Motion Pictures Echo, Two Brothers, a Ghost Rider family road trip. I don't know how I missed that, Bob. That's interesting. Wow, that's super cool. Okay, it's a looks like it's wow, Bob. I'm interested in this now. I'm not sure what's going on here. This is a this is a $30.86 page graphic novel about two brothers going on a week-long road trip in the Grand Canyon to stop a portal from hell opening up. Wow. Man, I'm gonna have to get a copy of that. It sounds very interesting. He's also worked on Old Dog Operations with Declan, so those are our creators there. Man, the stuff you find, in comics, just really, really cool.
I know.
That sounds awesome. Let's go over my synopsis really quick. Bob, the Terminator opens in Alaska, 2018. An elder man and his wife live in a remote cabin. The man is out fishing and only catching spare machine parts while his wife, Penny, is at home. Suddenly, a Terminator appears coming out of the water and walking up to their cabin. The man, I'm trying to remember the man's name. I have it written down here somewhere. Harper. Okay. So Harper tries to hold off the Terminator by shooting it while Penny sets a box of photos and memories on fire. We then flash back to 1979. The couple are just married, and the Terminator shows up. Harper discusses growing up off the grid with his family and suddenly being found by the Terminator as soon as they registered their marriage. They discuss both of their families being killed, and then the couple move from place to place, careful not to leave any clues behind as to where they went, but accidentally leaving behind a receipt showing Seattle. So then the Terminator knows where to find them. The Terminator chases them down and latches onto their small plane, but he's dropped in the water in the woods. And then we flash back to 2018. The Terminator kills Harper. Penny shows up and shoots it, but I'm not sure, Bob, if she just, is exacerbated and falls over into the fire or has a heart attack. Yeah, I'm going to go with heart attack, but yeah. That's kind of what it seemed like the story they were telling. But either way, she falls into the fire and presumably dies there. And then the Terminator turns around and walks back into the water. So that's what happens in our main story. Bob, I'm not even going to try with the backup story here because were you able to make enough sense out of what happened in this backup story? I will say this. It opens, it's called Buried Alive. And it opens with a Terminator showing up in the middle of the desert. And there's a hand coming out of the ground. And then we flash over to some Middle Eastern country, I'm guessing. And there's a Terminator there who smashes a cop car. So I guess it's just kind of the beginning of that story of that Terminator that's going to be serialized throughout the backups and all 10 issues of this series. But that's kind of what happens there. Bob, let's get into this. We're
focusing on the main story.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that if we have anything to say about it, but I'm not too sure that I do just yet. But how about the story beats here, Bob? How'd you feel about the beats of the story? It's a very simple structure. We're just kind of in present day, we flash back to what happened before, and then we're back in present day. So it's just kind of quick, fires quick, and it happens. But what are your thoughts on
it? Of course, sometimes the whole flashback thing, can be kind of iffy as far as the story beats. Because if you don't know you're going to a flashback, then, that's definitely going to trip you up. But it, especially does that thing where it actually says, 1979, so it's in the past.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, especially because of, that, which I always appreciate. I know you always appreciate.
Yeah. You know me, I can get lost in the story really easy, so.
Yeah, the story beats, definitely work. I mean, they go in a different order. They kind of begin with C and then, kind of comes full circle back to C. So it's kind of a very cyclical story being told.
Mm-hmm. I like this a lot, Bob. I really liked the beats here. I like the stakes of this story. It's such a
Hmm.
personal story that's going on just with this couple, really, and
Yeah,
we don't bring much of the outside world into it. So I thought that was really cool. But
yeah.
as far as beats, like I like the structure. It's very very cinematic. To open up on the little lake or whatever, and we've got Harper there, fishing, and it's just it really illustrates this couple like very very well. She's back at home, kind of washing dishes, and they're living this life, and they know that that it's what's the word, there's a timer on it. They're just waiting for that moment
Yeah,
to happen, and it's like
yeah.
that is also true of real life, not to bring down the podcast or whatever, but, we all know what's inevitable. We all know we're
Hmm.
not going to live forever. And that's just, over our shoulder at some point, and it just, comes when it comes. But, this is like a different way to tell that. It's different. Like this couple has made it to old age, and they've
Hmm.
outrun this Terminator, but they're not fooling themselves. They knew it was going to happen. They know what to do. They've got a plan in place and everything, and I think that it's really cool and interesting. I love the beats. I love how we go uh, from that happening and cutting in the middle of the action to doing a flashback. I really thought that was cool. And then jumping right back in, and bam, everybody dies. I really liked that a lot. I thought it was a cool way to move the story along, and I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, and that's going back to your point. I really appreciated the fact that Declan didn't try to put too much in,
Yeah.
especially as far as characters. That he just basically focused on the couple in the Terminator, and that's it.
Hmm. And I
I
love the
did.
fact that and I'm sure this is how, like, this is almost like anthology type of storytelling, but like it would be very easy to say, like, all right, let's get to know this couple and have the Terminator follow them for 10 issues and blah blah blah. Like, we don't need that kind of thing here. Like, this is like
No.
very quick pacing, and it works really well the way that it's written and structured here. So I really really like these beats. The
Hmm.
dialogue, Bob. How about the dialogue here for Declan? These are characters that we don't know that are introduced in this comic. Of course, the Terminator doesn't really have any dialogue to speak of here. It's just
No.
Harper and Penny talking. Um,
Hmm.
so, brand new characters here, but how did you feel about their dialogue?
See, and I like the dialogue, and you brought up this point a little earlier. Um, the fact that they're living their lives like
Mm-hmm.
any kind of normal couple, but they know, and they're not fooling each other. They even tell themselves basically, or tell each other basically, that we have to get moving. Our time is finite.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually he's going to catch up to us. So
Yeah,
I like the juxtaposition in the fact that they're living their lives, but they know that eventually, you know, it's going to come to an end.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like that too, and I love the exposition in in the way that it's done in storytelling. I mean,
Yeah,
that sentence was a little janky there, but like you know what I'm saying. Like I love the
yeah,
fact that like the storytelling involved the exposition, and it didn't feel forced or anything. It wasn't like an exposition dump. It worked in the way the story was being told. So
yeah. It really did. I mean, the exposition, just like the dialogue, was so well done.
yeah, Declan really can tell a story, and I mean, I think that he's shown that it's not a problem for him to give like a little bit of a different take, and I really like that. And like we know how he's working with Thundercats and everything, but yeah, just really really cool. How about the narrative of this book? I feel like we kind of, have pretty much already touched on it as much as we're going to be able to with narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've explained the narrative structure of this book and how it works and everything. I'm just going to say I really, really like it a lot.
Yeah.
I like how we're dropped in and how the Terminator comes out of, the blue like that. And then we get the little flashback and then we're back into the story. Like, I thought the narrative structure was really, really good here. Worked perfectly.
Yeah, especially in that one scene where the Terminator just comes out of the lake. Just me, you know how I like to make pop culture references to, different TV series and movies. Being a big Simpsons fan, it reminded me of one episode where Bart skips school and Principal Skinner is just constantly, chasing him, trying to catch him in the act. And there's actually a scene where Bart cuts the rope bridge over a river of rushing water, and Principal Skinner just walks through the water and then walks up the other side. They even stop the music in the episode when he's underwater and then start it back up when he appears out of water.
Yeah, it's so cool. And there's, some of the places were dropped, like those scenes of the Terminator just rising up out of the water is just so cool. I think the narrative structure of this is very good.
I really like the narrative. I mean, it's basically just them, just the couple trying to escape inevitability and doing the best they can with what time they know they have left.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. How about the world building? I think that this is, going to be a 4 for 4 on the story here. In my opinion, I love the world building. I think that is the strength of this book, is the way that they fleshed out the world and the little tiny amount of time they did it. Like, we're familiar with, the war and everything that happened with the rise of the machines and everything. And that's already a given. And, so we know that part of the world. We understand that Terminators, come back and try to kill people from the resistance and everything, and all that's laid out in the book enough too. But as far as like this little slice of the world, this little piece of this couple, trying to live like off the grid and trying to avoid this Terminator for as long as possible, so they can just be in love and be with one another in their old age and everything, and they're in their cabin in the woods and everything, and they're on this lake and all of that. Like, man, I just loved this world building. I thought it was perfect for this story.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to a prior issue of the podcast last week when we did Battle of Jakku.
Yeah.
And we both brought up the point that just because the war stops, or just because one side wins does not mean the war is over.
Yeah.
Just because, the bombs were dropped and all that doesn't mean you still don't have these small pockets of just, heaven on earth, basically, which is basically what Harper and Penny found.
Yeah, exactly. The world building here is so cool. And Bob, I did just want to say, I've got it up in front of me, so I hope this is very accurate, but I'm not coming through all the episodes, but we've done Darkwing Duck, Thundercats Chitara, Thundercats proper, Powerpuff Girls, Space Ghost, and Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. So I think that is what we've done for Dynamite. And again, I don't think there was a single one that we didn't like. I think we've loved all of them. So that's just, again, a huge testament to Dynamite. If any of you out there are on the fence or are avoiding Dynamite for whatever reason, we get you. We were those people before too. The only reason we read any of this stuff was for the podcast. It wasn't stuff that we would have read, either way. And just do yourself a favor and just take the plunge and grab a Dynamite book. It's just, I'm sorry to say it, they are just worlds above most publishers. Like they're just knocking these things out of the park, and they're doing really, really well. And it's just not what you would expect. Is all I can say. Especially if you are like in the kind of age group that Bob and I are in. Like, maybe you're a little bit younger and Dynamite means a different thing to you, but to us, it was just like, it was kind of TNA books and there wasn't much substance there. And like, that's just not what they are at all. That's not even close to what Dynamite is doing. So I just do want to say that, for anybody who doesn't know that, very important. Bob, how about the art? We have Luke Sparrow here. Really cool name, by the way. That's definitely like a rock star artist name. Luke Sparrow on art. What did you feel about the characters? We got Penny and we have Harper and we've got the Terminator. I think, other than that, we've got like there's like a guy they're renting a plane from or something. I think that's really all we see in this book.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I know this goes more back to storytelling than art, but like, I think that is one of my favorite things about the book. There's kind of the isolation that this couple has to feel, and I really, really love that. I think that's super cool. But how did you feel about the character art here? How did you feel he executed this Terminator and the couple?
I really enjoyed the character art. Mm-hmm. The character of the Terminator. Of course, he's got the build of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, which it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice to have that, to have that kind of throwback to something we're familiar with, especially when you're dealing with an existing IP.
Mm-hmm.
He facially wise, he kind of looks like Steven Seagal.
yeah, he kind of does.
But no, I like the character art. I mean, it definitely shows, a just married couple, with Harper and Penny in the 1979 flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it just shows the fact that, they're weathered from having to be on the run so much. And, I just enjoy the character art.
Penny is really reminding me of something very familiar, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. But I'm getting like vibes of like horror comic, like old lady from her, especially when she's, an older lady. But I feel like I'm seeing something very familiar, like something I've seen in like Ice Cream Man or something like that. So I'm not sure, Tales from the Crypt or something. But I'm with you. I don't mean to circle back, but yeah, the characters do really, really work here. Bob, I've got an important question for you. Everybody listening to the podcast wants to know, as always, each and every comic that we cover on the All New, All Different #1 Comics podcast have to pass a certain, bar. They have to pass a test. And that test is, different from comic to comic because it can mean different things and there's nuance there. But it is of the utmost importance that, a comic really works with their backgrounds and that, backgrounds are there with purpose and with dignity, even and artistic integrity. And, that's a very, very important thing that you grade comics on, Bob. So does Terminator 1 from Dynamite Comics 2024 pass your background test?
It definitely fits the tone of this book, especially going back to, the cabin in the woods in Alaska that they found. I mean, you get that one shot of the Terminator coming out of the water, but you also see the cabin from a distance. And, even though we know what happened to this world, we know it's gone to hell in a handbasket, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, being that they're in, a little slice of Alaska, I mean, their house is still immaculate. I mean, everything looks so clean. I mean, you can see all the thatching on the roof. You can see, I mean, even when you go inside, I mean, all the pictures are nice and straight. I mean, the books look like they've been, placed and measured out with the ruler. I mean, the backgrounds definitely work. And the panels where we do see solid color, there's something going on. Like when they're taking off in the plane, you see a solid color, but you see those, I don't know what they're called, but you see those lines to indicate movement in speed.
Yep. Yeah, and I completely echo, all of what you said there. I really do like the background art in this book. I think that it really, either showcases what's going on and adds to it a lot, or it takes a back seat so that way what's on the foreground can really, tell the story. And yeah, I mean, I think this is a prime example of Declan Shelby, again, being an artist himself, probably being able to communicate very well with Luke Sparrow. But, he was like, hey, man, like, tell the story with your art. Here's the script, but you tell the story and I'll throw in some dialogue.
Yeah, I really enjoyed how they did this more in modern day, just so we don't see the same old everything's gone to hell in the handbasket. Everything is rough. Everything is dark. There's nothing good about this world we live in. So I'm really glad they showed more of a, pristine, proper, everything in its place kind of, small slice.
Yeah, completely with you. I really enjoy the backgrounds here. It definitely works. Locations, Bob. Location. Always important, especially when you're opening a comic book store, might I add. But locations, Bob. We've got, we're in the Alaska, wilderness, or kind of in the woods there. We've got some cool interior shots. A lot of stuff on the lake, and then I will say my favorite part of this book is that opening page, those first 5 panels, the location that the Terminator shows up in, very, very cool. But yeah, once we get to more familiar territory and everything, again, we're kind of just in the Alaska wilderness, and less until we get to that 2-page backup story, that takes place in the desert and somewhere in the Middle East. But pretty much on the same location. I think that really, really works for this story. I don't want to see them globetrotting. Like it's insinuated, they go from somewhere to Seattle, then to Alaska. So, but yeah, if they were like, moving to, I don't know, like Russia, and then, to Iceland, and then, to America, I don't want to see all that in the story. Like I like this, like localized where it is and everything. I think it really fits the tone.
And going back to something we were wondering at the beginning, I don't know if you have your copy of the book open right now.
Yeah.
But we were wondering, we were wondering, what exactly happened to Penny. And I happened to notice, I didn't notice this at first, but I happened to notice that there is a panel when Harper is telling Penny to, burn the box.
Yeah.
There is a panel of Penny saying, "My God, I can't believe it's happening." And you actually see her, it could be just holding her shirt, but being that that's where the heart is.
Yeah.
That could be an indication that, okay, she's got a bad heart, and this is just exacerbating it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing Penny basically dying of a heart attack before she's, burned alive, which, is probably better than just being burned alive. But, I don't know. But yeah, it looks like that too. It looks like Penny's very stressed and she's, grasping her chest or whatever. So yeah, I'm with you there. Bob, last but not least, the colors. I'm going to check really quick to see if we have a dedicated color artist. It does not specifically say one, so... Oh, yes, it does. I'm sorry. Colin Craker is the colorist on this book. So the color artist, Colin Craker. How'd you feel about the colors? There's definitely some... when we open the book, we've got those muted tones, and then we have kind of like the... I don't know. The color palette's interesting here because it's like a little drab, but I get it because, it's not wide open fields and bright sunny skies throughout the entire book. So we go from like, kind of muted earthy tones to, kind of the same thing in the fiery tones and everything, but I feel like it fits the tone of the story very well, if any of that's making sense. But I'd love to hear your take.
Yeah, I enjoyed, as I always enjoy whenever there's a flashback in a story going from the present time to the past. I always enjoy the fact that there's two different color palettes.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Which, to me, I got when they went back to 1979.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the color seemed a little more muted, like blues and such.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in present day, it was a little, brighter with, yellows and browns and, just a little bit brighter tones.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely thought, all of that worked very, very well. Had no problems there. All right, Bob. Well, you know what time it is. I know what time it is, but I'm going to go ahead and verbalize that for the listeners here. It is time to, let our listeners know, is this enough to, suggest this book, suggest that they add it to their pool, that they pick up the next issue. How did you feel about Terminator 1?
Oh, yeah. I would definitely recommend this to the listeners out there, especially since this seems like a brand new way of telling Terminator. It seems like it's going to focus on more than just Sarah Connor, John Connor, the resistance, all that kind of stuff. So, it's basically, I don't want to say a new movie, but just I'll go ahead and say a new movie told in comic book form.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this. Like I think it's probably pretty clear that I love this. I thought that this was done really, really well, and I think one of the main reasons that I like this so much is it would have been very easy to come in, do a straightforward Terminator story, focus on something like the T900 or whatever, focus on the Terminator that we all love and know. Have a depiction of Arnold in there, have Sarah Connor, have John Connor, whatever, have some ties to that. And what Declan did instead was like really took a swing, and he really said, I feel like this is, if Terminators were out in the world, and this is what existed and this was the reality we were living, there'd be more of them and they'd be looking for other people and trying to stop this and this. And that makes sense. And for this to be kind of an anthology type of series, which is pretty much what we're going to be getting here. These stories all tie into a larger story, but they're not, the next issue is not going to follow Penny and Harper. That's done. That's a self-contained story in this comic. And I really love that. And I love that I get to explore the world of Terminator, but the stakes aren't so high that I have to know everything about Harper and Penny's past and everything. Like everything that I needed to know about them was in this issue, and now it's done. And that's what we're going to get in the next issue is another, story that's going to be done. And I really, really love that. And I like anthology stories anyways. I like things like Haha, Ice Cream Man, all of the Silver Coin, anthology stories that have recently been coming out, and they all do try to tie into something, but this is an entire world. This feels very different from those kind of anthology stories because it's based on one thing that's happening or that's happened in the world, and it's a reaction of that. And I don't know. I think this is wonderful. This is like 10 out of 10 for me. Like I have nothing bad to say about this book whatsoever. It's done so well, executed so well. Declan did such an amazing job writing it. Luke Sparrow did a really amazing job illustrating it. It's just so cool. I love it. I cannot wait for the next issue to come out. Bob, I have read this 6 times since I picked it up, and I would read it again. It's such a wonderful, cool story. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love this. I highly suggest. No, instead of suggesting or recommending, I demand that you go to your local comic book shop and pick this up and add it to your pool. It is that good. This is really good story. So definitely, please check this out. It is well worth it. Is all I can say. With that being said, Bob, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with some new books that are coming out next week. We'll pick we'll pick a few to throw on the wheel. We'll pick a winner, and we'll wrap this thing up. Hello, and welcome back to the all-new, all-different number one comics podcast, issue number 91. Bob, we're 91 issues old. Holy crap. Let's go over some comics that are coming out next week, hopefully. But of course, before we do, we have a very special theme song that we have to play because it's disclaimer time. Welcome to disclaimer time. Gather around for disclaimer time. Try not to get killed by Terminators at disclaimer time with Bob. I stumbled a little bit, but it was topical.
I was gonna say very topical song this week.
Right. Yeah.
But like I say this in every other week, these are just a few of the books that are hopefully coming out this week in your local comic shop. There's a myriad of reasons why they may not come out, least of which is distributor scheduling. There could be a conflict. The comics could be damaged, which happens unfortunately more often than it should with our local comic shop. I know, I was going to say,
in our local comic shop, that's very often.
Yeah. We just had 2 hurricanes come through Florida within the span of 2 weeks.
Yep.
Luckily we did not get hit, or else we would not be doing this podcast right now.
Most likely not. Yep.
No. So, but if you want a more in-depth list, feel free to consult elsewhere. You can always call your local comic shop. A please and thank you go a long way. Of course, the other avenues, Harry Potter Owl, John Wick Tube System, Smoke Signal, Paper Airplane. Got anything else for this week?
Well, Bob, I like to keep it topical, and we do know, sadly that, Skynet and AI and all that is very real. It's not, it's things that are inevitably going to happen. So, if you can, get a hold of your own Terminator to go back in time or show up at a specific location for you, you get them to show up at your local comic book shop and, basically tell your local comic book shop owner, hey, you're going to tell me every book and synopsis and creator and everything that's coming out for the foreseeable future, or else I'm going to kill you. So, don't do that. But, you could have a nice Terminator who just goes and says, hey, would you mind letting my, owner, or, operator or whatever know what books are coming up in the near future? And I'm sure that they'd be glad to.
Shoot, I'm sorry. What are you talking about? I'm sending my Terminator back 40 years and getting my copy of Action Comics and Fantastic Four #1.
There you go. Why stop there, Bob? There's so many books. But yeah, Action, Detective 27. Yeah, there's a lot of books you could get your Terminator to pick up for you. So,
there's a lot of books, but just those 2 alone, I never have to worry about money again.
Yeah, true. Nothing wrong with that.
But starting off the list from the publisher with just 3 characters and 3 characters alone. Well, 4 characters if you want to follow this book. We have Batman and Robin Year 1, #1.
A 12-issue series that explores the beginning of Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson's relationship.
I think we all know how that goes, and it, deals with, Dick Grayson losing his parents, Bruce saying, hey, do you want to come live at my mansion? Dick saying, yes.
Yes, please. Yes, Mr. Batman guy.
And then eventually Dick Grayson, gets another identity, moves to another city. I think that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
Sticking with the very redundant comic book publisher, we have Batman Full Moon #1. And no, this does not involve Bruce Wayne pulling down his pants.
That we know of because we have not read it yet. So I would like to point that out there. I mean, you don't think it does, but we never know.
This is
Bob,
true.
This one's interesting because, it's been solicited before, so I thought it was supposed to come out back a little while ago, but this one is a 32-pager. It's a Black Label book, and it's an ancient and supernatural force stalks the streets of Gotham City, a lichen so powerful it'll defy Batman's most trusted resources, his brilliant mind and extensive gadgetry. But are Batman's physical strength and resilience alone enough to put the creature down for good, or will this fight strip him down to his very bones? Even powerful magic allies like Zatanna caution that Bruce may not walk away from this one unscathed. We've got Eisner-nominated writer Rodney Barnes and breakout artist Stefan Subic. They tear into a horrific tale of pain and redemption as Batman meets his match, the Werewolf of Gotham City. Each issue of this series will boast a striking glow-in-the-dark main cover, Bob. So if you want to get your striking glow-in-the-dark main cover, you know where to go.
So will it work once and that's it?
That's it, Bob.
Also, this seemed like one of those Batman with prep time can beat the werewolf.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, Batman with anything can beat anything. So, as you know, Batman never loses.
That is true. Except when he does, but then they bring him back.
Sure.
Going to the House of Ideas, Marvel Comics, we have Crypt of Shadows #1.
Bob, can I tell you why you're going to want to pick this one up?
Yes.
You're going to want to pick this one up because it has the first appearance of Joshua Jovian, a monster hunter first introduced in the Werewolf by Night Disney Plus special. It's also got the first appearance of Amaranth. I have no idea how to say that. It's probably not correct. But an apprentice
of... No, you're actually right.
Oh, wow. An apprentice of the Scarlet Witch. So some cool first appearances in here. Of course, we know, like, when we get into the, horror Marvel stuff, like, some of those first appearances are really worth picking up. I don't know. I'm excited to grab Crypt of Shadows anyways, but yeah, I'll definitely be picking this up.
Sticking with the House of Ideas, we have Miles Morales Spider-Man #25. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is he still a vampire?
I don't think so. But I don't know. I haven't read one in a bit, so I haven't been following Miles Morales super close. But Bob, you are gonna want to follow Miles super close because this has the debut of his vibranium spider suit. So if you didn't think Miles could get any cooler, he just did. Vibranium.
I know.
Man, I'm definitely picking this up.
I know. I kind of want to see the design on that. Sticking with the House of Ideas again, we have Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu #1.
Bob, Mark Spector's return as Moon Knight in this premiere issue. Mark is back. Moon Knight's back. Guess who's back? Moon Knight's back.
Alrighty then. From Marvel Comics, we have Mystique #1.
Bob, it's costume time. It's Halloween time. Everybody's in costumes. Miles just got a vibranium costume. Mystique gets a new costume here. Yeah,
and I might add a character over the years who has not had many solo series. I mean, this is only volume 2.
Yeah, volume 2 for a character that old. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then we get the Punisher, who's up to, 14?
At least.
Yeah, so staying with Marvel Comics, we have the Spectacular Spider-Man #8.
Bob, the first appearance of Elementary, a new hero.
So are we going to get a middle school and a high school?
I hope so.
Stick a very Marvel-dominated list. We have Ultimate Spider-Man number 10.
Possible first cameo appearance of Ultimate Black Cat. It's possible, Bob.
My favorite cameo appearance. They possibly appear.
They possibly do.
We have Uncanny X-Men number 4.
Bob, possibly identity
Two possibles on the same list.
That's it. Possible identity of the Endling revealed, a massive threat to mutants. Man, when are people going to leave the mutants alone and stop being a massive threat to them is my question.
Mutants are like Rodney Dangerfield. They don't get any respect.
You are not wrong.
If you're a mutate like Spider-Man, you get respect. Mm-hmm. But if you're a mutant and you're born with powers, you get no respect at all. I have no idea why.
I was gonna go for a Rodney Dangerfield impression, but I can't even get it in my head. So to verbalize it is not gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you wouldn't do it justice. So
yeah, you're not wrong.
Don't even try to imitate Rodney Dangerfield.
I'm gonna do it off air, Bob. Don't worry.
There's few people you shouldn't try to. Nobody should try to imitate. Nobody should try to imitate Rodney Dangerfield.
And in an episode where we're talking about Rodney Dangerfield and we're doing Terminator, no Arnold impressions, no Rodney Dangerfield impressions. You're only going to get this quality content here on this podcast.
I do a very bad Arnold impression.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we both do a bad impression of whatever impression we're doing.
Getting back to the list, we have Venom War, Deadpool number 2.
Deadpool bonds with the Princess Symbiote.
The Princess Symbiote. Man, are they running out of symbiotes?
No, they've got plenty more, Bob. Don't worry.
So is there going to be a Duke symbiote? Is there going to be a Chancellor symbiote? Is there going to be a Queen symbiote?
Oh, yeah. Keep them coming.
Symbiote's coming out of the woodworks. From Boom Studios, we have Vicarious number 1.
Bob, a young man finds just what he's looking for in the secret world of proxies. Young, pretty, ambitious hustlers like himself who allow the rich access to their feelings and experiences through a technological implant. I love the way this sounds. Yeah, I listened to an interview with the creator on something the other day, and it sounds so cool. And he was trying to explain it to the interviewer, and he was like, just imagine stuff that you don't want to do, like skydive or something. He's like, you can basically hack into this person's body for a second and experience skydiving without having to do it yourself. That actually is kind of cool.
Interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the House of Ideas, we have Wolverine number 2.
Now, Bob, I know everybody's favorite character in Marvel Comics is Wendigo. So, whenever he first appeared, and everybody wants his first appearance in Hulk 181. It's just a really, there was another character in that book that no one really cared about, but Wendigo was on the cover of that book. It's very, very important, and everybody cared a lot. And now we have a new Wendigo. So, yeah, pick it up, man. That's all I can say.
And finally, rounding out the list, one of the only 3 characters that this particular company has, we have Wonder Woman number 14.
Yeah, Bob, part of the Trinity. Wonder Woman 14, the origin of the birth of Lizzie Prince, the daughter of Wonder Woman, who later becomes Trinity, first introduced in Wonder Woman 800. Bob, the origin of the birth. I mean, that's one thing I love about DC Comics. They always have the origin of an event. It's always a thing. And I'm always thinking to myself, that's cool. I like that you do that. There's no problem there. But I guess since we're big on key issues and speculation and all that stuff now, it's like the origin of an event is not going to net you very much profit.
Yeah, that just seems kind of weird, and I'm sure one particular thing comes to mind, and yeah.
Yeah, an origin of that event, Bob. Yeah, but those are some of the books that are dropping in comic book shops next week. I know we've got a couple on the wheel here, Bob. We've got 3 to be exact. Looks like we're going to be, well, actually, I didn't add Mystique, so let me do that. So it looks like we'll be between Green Lantern Dark, which is a book that was not mentioned, but it probably would be good that we have each book that's on the wheel, kind of explained here. That's something that a change that I want to make here on the podcast. I want to make sure that each book that's on the wheel is one that we talk about beforehand. So Green Lantern Dark, on a post-apocalyptic Earth overrun by monsters, the battle between good and evil ended long ago, and evil won. Now darkness prevails as humanity struggles to survive in the corrupted wasteland that remains. Only one hero is said to haunt what is left of our shadowed cities, the one who wields the mystical green flame that could return light into a dark world. The Green Lantern. But she's been missing for years, and the isolated island of New England, Solomon Grundy's undead army, only grows larger and more powerful every night. Celebrated horror artist of smash hit Something is Killing the Children, Werther del Adira teams up with rising star writer Tate Bromble of House of Slaughter to bring you a chilling tale of desperation, hope, and resurrection from the bitter remains of the fan favorite Tangent universe. Wow, sorry, that was a very long solicit. But it had to be said. I do want to pull up, of course, Exorcism at 1600 Pen as well, because that is also another book that is on our wheel here. This October, IDW debuts a chilling new 4-issue original supernatural horror series, perfect for fans of Nice House on the Lake and Haunting of Hill House. From the pen of rising comics writer Hannah Rose May, who wrote Rogues Gallery, and acclaimed artist Vanessa Del Rey, Kelly Doyle has just been elected the first woman president of the United States of America, and boiling political tension could spill over at any second. Having to balance between mother of 2 teenagers and navigating the shifting media landscape, all while preventing World War III, has Kelly spread thin. But she could never predict that the nation's hallowed halls would soon become a demonic battleground for good versus evil. So, Bob, if that doesn't sound like a freaking amazing book, especially coming out right now, in election season and all of that, and around Halloween. I mean, they really, I would say Hannah Rose May really, really capitalized on doing this right now and grabbing Vanessa Del Rey to do it with her. So that's a really cool book. But yeah, we've got cool books on the wheel here. We've got Green Lantern Dark, Mystique, and Exorcism at 1600 Pen. Let's spin the wheel and see where it lands, Bob. It looks like next week we will be covering Mystique. So back to the X-Men. From the Ashes? Is that the name of this era? I believe so. So back to the From the Ashes era. We'll be exploring a little bit more about what makes Mystique, and what happens with her new costume and the issue of Mystique #1. Bob, with that being said, that about wraps up the show. Thank you guys so much all for tuning in. Of course, check us out on all the socials, all the usual places. We're on X, we're on Instagram, and we are on TikTok. Just search for the All New, All Different #1 Comics Podcast. And use our hashtag, All New, All Different Nation, to be entered to win a copy of this beautiful book with this wonderful Alex Ross cover art, Terminator #1 from Dynamite Comics. Again, that hashtag is All New, All Different Nation. Bob, tell them we'll see him next week.
we'll see him next week.
And podcast out.